I don't know where people get this idea that I'm a metalhead. It's okay, everybody. Viewer number 4 didn't go anywhere, but it occurs to me that I need to broaden my appeal and widen my audience, and I had a few ideas of how to do that, one of which involved a rack, like they used in medieval times for back therapy. But instead of going from top to bottom, it would go from side to side. One surefire way there of widening my audience. Force feeding delicious cookies, another potential avenue to explore, but I poo-pooed these ideas, dear viewer, because I really do need to appeal to more people, and to that end, I thought I'd broaden my appeal by talking about a niche subject that the average person is either indifferent to or actively hates. Even though this largely focuses on heavy metal, I made it so it would be completely understandable to anybody who doesn't know anything about heavy metal. Obviously, I didn't really do that, but I thought if I said I did, then non-heavy metal people might keep watching. But now that cat's out of the bag, maybe they'll keep watching because I'm an honest sort. People ask me, why heavy metal, Patrick? And I say, why heavy metal? Because fuck you, that's why. That's a nice little sentence, beginning and ending as it does, on the same letter. But fuck you. Well, I say, they say. That doesn't seem very inclusive. And I respond, are you into metal? And they say, well, no. And so I say, fuck you. But if you were a heavy metal person, then we'd be cool. We're inclusive like that. I mean, we even tolerate people who think hard rock is heavy metal. I mean, obviously Guns and Posers fans and their ilk quite rightly get constant scrutiny. The continuous side-eye must be maintained on Def Leppard listeners, dear viewer. Rock and roll attitude, you see, is a bit different from the metal attitude. And here you was thinking it was about music. Music? Fuck that hoity-toity bourgeoisie bullshit. It's time for some fucking metal. The miracle of post-production, dear viewer. I just slipped the sound in there after the fact. If I remember. I wanted to be a heavy metal guitarist, but unfortunately suffered a terrible affliction whereupon I couldn't be bothered to learn anything new about technique or even practice the tiny amount I had managed to teach myself on the instrument, which often led to the peculiar situation where I'd pick up the guitar, tune it, and then somehow fully expect myself capable of playing whatever it happened to be that I wished to play, which is absurd. Why is this 300 BPM multi-tapping not working out quite how I wanted? Oh yes, I remember now. I can't play for shit. Well, needless to say, I'm not a heavy metal guitarist, but I took the metal attitude and decided that I would put it into the service of comedy. But unfortunately, I suffered this terrible affliction. Oh no, dear viewer, this affliction, it's metal as fuck. It's got black bits in there and everything. It only hurts when I exist or when I make the devil horns. But comedians are posers, and we're here for the metal. I'm going to say things, right, that you're probably not going to like. It's not just my opinion either, because behind my opinion I have the weight of knowledge and lived experience, decades of it. I was there when it started. You can call me Mr. Elderly McGatekeepy Gatekeeper, the metal gatekeeper of the metal gate. The metal gate, it's made of man o' war. Some people discuss who the first metal band was. You know what I call those people? Polemics. First metal band was Venom. Everything before was either hard rock or, in the case of Black Sabbath, proto-metal. Proto-metal is the best I can do, given that Black Sabbath aren't fucking metal by any stretch. Of course, you have to give them credit for the doom genre. I mean, if not for Black Sabbath, we wouldn't have had the pleasure of knowing Sharon Osbourne, would we? Thanks so much for that. I like how the world of metal got all reverential when Ozzy finally kicked the bucket. Glowing tributes, fawning remembrances for the Israel supporting Ozzy Osbourne. So I think, dear viewer, we have a good sense of how I feel about him. Oh no! The elitist music snobs will cry. You've got it all wrong, Patrick. Black Sabbath were first. Band. Metal. first metal band, Sabbath. And Steppenwolf did something too. You know why Venom are metal and Black Sabbath are just hard rockers with good public relations? It's the fuck you factor. I reckon if it was back in the day and I went to Brum, that's what we British call Birmingham for short, amongst other things, I go back in time to Brum and into a Black Sabbath rehearsal, you know, just before their first album, whatever, and I could go in there and tell them, this is what granddads listen to, before turning down all their amps and stealing the kick pedal. And even if they caught me, I'd not end up any worse for wear. Good people, I expect. Posers, but people. Not Ozzy Osbourne the Zionist, of course. He's toast. But still, I'm coming out with my hide intact, in fact, after doing all that crap. In contrast, if I went into a Venom rehearsal, I'd end up with a microphone stand jammed so far up my arse that King Diamond would use me as a stage prop. And this would happen just because I didn't even do anything except make eye contact with Kronos. It's not just the music, you have to have the swagger as well, and Venom were 100% that. Not now, of course, because it's old hat, but if they were still 100%, I would have said are instead of were, because I know what words mean and what my intended meaning is. Which just goes to show you, doesn't it, that Danny Filth of Cradle of Filth is obviously a born-again Christian. What? You might be wondering, all confused. I am surprised, dear viewer, nay shocked that you weren't aware of this, especially as I pointed this out before. And if you've heard this bit before, then please don't spoil it for yourself. I used to be ambivalent towards Danny Filth, regarding him as little more than a life-sized Funko Pop version of himself, sitting on his sofa, eating apple slices from Waitrose, who, on occasion, would rise up from his placid domesticity to write yet another masterpiece of gothic Amdram metal music that was passable enough to warrant me not bursting my own eardrums with a pair of drumsticks I may or may not have stolen from Black Sabbath's drummer. I wonder if I've said enough words for you to have forgotten my assertion that Danny Filth is, you know, one of them. A born-again Christian. The evidence is there for all to see. That Cradle of Filth t-shirt that says, in bold letters, Jesus is a cunt. Is that so, Danny Filth? Clearly you believe in the resurrected Nazarene, otherwise you would surely have written, Jesus was a cunt. Ergo quid pro quo, populus pro plural prola pluribus QED, thus I rest my case. So my attitude toward Danny Filth, the life-sized Funko Pop of himself, who eats grapes delicately peeled by willing groupies, grapes purchased from Waitrose, was one of ambivalence, but recent events have kicked it over to indifference. That's right, dear viewer, don't sign a contract with Danny Filth. Not even the devil himself is daft enough to do that. Did you hear about this? Boring contract things and bandmate betrayals that I can't be asked to talk about now, which is probably a bit rude, since I'm the one who insisted on dredging it up. Danny Filth wears corpse paint, but his career's not dead yet. He wears the coloured contact lenses to make his eyes all demonic, and I wonder, who is scared of Danny Filth? Is it little blue-haired Nan tottering down the road, headed to the wherever old people go? I'll be finding out myself in a couple of years. Is it Nana who's afraid of Danny Filth? No, it isn't. Nana thinks Danny Filth is a peacock with a peacock. Who is scared of Danny Filth? Is it a sweet little child with cherub cheeks and wide innocent eyes who would be deathly fearful of this apparition? No, it isn't. Why would a small child be fearful of an oversized Funko Pop that resembles the mascot from Ground Flower Company, Home Pride? Who is scared of Danny Filth? Is it a little midge, one of those almost imperceptible flies that fly around, which is how I imagine old Danny Boy views his band members, not so much human beings but more chattel slaves that he can exploit for his own enrichment? But a midge, we could give it a name. Ewer. And is the midge afraid of Danny Filth? No, it isn't. A midge doesn't have the capacity to feel emotion, but even if it did, it would be more afraid of an errant mote of dust than Danny Filth. All I can conclude from all of this, dear viewer, is that I probably don't like Danny Filth all that much, because I had only penciled in a paragraph for him, but here we are. Obviously, I should have got something in writing. That joke works on multiple levels. Sometimes I do have to point these things out. And this wasn't going to be topical in the least. It was supposed to be just me remembering things from the distant past and pretending those things are funny for the purposes of filling up the runtime of the video. Don't get it wrong, dear viewer, of all the antisocial groups in society, metalheads are probably the best house-trained. What other group's antisocial bent basically amounts to banter? Fuck you, Granny, unless you need some help crossing the road, in which case I'm the person to help. Just let me put down my grimoire and battle axe. I'm mean and vicious, Gran. Fuck Def Leppard, mind your step there. Wah! Satan! Satan, Gran! I finished helping Gran across the road. That's right, dear viewer. I was out and about in town yesterday, and she turned to me and said, "Thank you for your help, young lady, and for fuck's sake, save that bottom of the barrel Celtic frost bit for when you're truly creatively bankrupt. Tell them about something real instead." To which I replied, "I don't have to be spoken to like that by a figment of my own imagination that's broadly based on Betty White but with a Cockney accent. Safe travels, Gran. Satan!" Back in the mists of time in a place called Get Me the Fuck Out of Here, Please. Did I write that to say it out loud? Oh, little bit of rhetorical, but it was Chelmsford. And in the city centre was the multi-storey car park. Not a car park with more than one tale to tell, if that's where you think I'm going. I'm keeping it real. This is realistic. No brontosaurs with creaky necks for this one, dear viewer. If you can imagine something resembling an upturned milk crate made of rough concrete standing about 5 stories high, that's the multi-storey car park, with road access from a busy roundabout on one side and pedestrian access on the other from where the enclosed shopping mall let out into a narrow square of sorts. The ground floor of the car park wasn't for parking vehicles, it was an area where they would have market stalls. It was a big market too, about the size of a football pitch. Fruit and veg, and they gave it all the Barrow Boy act when selling it, you know. "Here you go, love, 2 for the price of 1 because I like your face." You could get anything in there. Meat, there was a butcher, bread, there was a baker. No, there was a burger van parked in there, so the smell of fried onions and horse meat mingled in with the faint aroma of public toilets and the heady fug of spent diesel. That smell of diesel came from the roundabout side. You could walk through the market and there were some entrances you could go through to the back where the buses would come in. The ceiling was easily high enough for all the double-decker buses. But that's the market as I remember it. It was like an overground underground market, wombling free. It wasn't a scary place, but it was strange, as most liminal spaces are, I suppose. I dream about it from time to time, kind of oppressive, the weight of the structure, and brutalist, I'll say. It was like being in a cave, somewhat, cavernous being an appropriate descriptor. Dark, grey, the sort of place where you'd swear you'd just missed Arthur Daly. For the slightly younger viewers, dark, grey, the sort of place where you'd swear you'd just missed Del Boy. For our younger viewers, dark, grey, the sort of place where you'd swear you'd just missed Nigel Farage. Don't worry, he's not on the 76 bus. That joke works on 2 levels, but it does require an extensive knowledge of attendance rates, of constituencies in small seaside towns and the current bus schedule in the area. I don't think it's a winner. Think of it more as a winner warning. I've been going on about this market staged in a multi-storey car park, and I worry that you might be wondering what the ever-loving fuck any of this has to do with heavy metal. I'm getting to it. Just 11 more words to go until I start describing the music stall that sold, amongst other things, vinyl picture discs, vinyl LPs and cassette tapes. If I was like Boris Johnson and wanted to create a persona of buffoonery to disguise from my calculated evil, I might say cassette tapes like cassettipes. Don't you just love cassettipes? I use them all the time to help me write. I just record a question and then play it back. It's genius. Cassettipes. You might be thinking, that's a terrible impression of Boris Johnson, and I'm not going to argue. But I did a perfect impression of him earlier. In fact, it might still be there, as I don't remember if I flushed or not. Boris Johnson, a man whose staircase wit is in want. Now, this market stall, remember that? Didn't sell anything new, it was all second hand. You could sell your records and tapes there. It catered for a broad taste and had stuff you might not find in Our Price. Our Price, a commercial record store that was in the enclosed shopping mall near the multi-storey car park. Story for another time, but this market stall had a table laid out groaning under the weight of about 1,000 bootleg tapes of recently recorded live performances, most of which were from famous artists, you know, charting bands, legacy acts, that kind of thing. If David Bowie gave a Nazi salute at Hammersmith Odeon on Thursday night, then a couple of days later there would be a recording of it at this stall and probably many other stalls like it around the country. The packaging of these bootlegs consisted of deliberately shoddy monochromatic photocopies cut to size with scissors that had the name of the artist or band, the date and venue, and, if you were lucky, a track list. Aren't I lucky? I got a chunky bit. Certainly one couldn't accuse the market trader of pushing a hard sale, but given the only cost to factor in is that of the tape and a sad slip of photocopied paper, everything else, well, it's a nice little earner. Or, if you're slightly younger, lovely jubbly. Or, if you're younger than that, I hate minorities and want them repatriated. We'll send them to Clacton, Nigel. You'll never have to see them again. But in amongst the tapes of famous artists and bands and chart toppers, there were indie label bands, metal bands. Oh yeah, I didn't forget we're on the metal. Gothic bands, reggae, folk, dance. It was an era where there wasn't a lot of choices, so you mainly just listened to whatever they gave you. I would never have countenanced buying one of these tapes, but for one small detail, because as I was intently browsing the titles with complete disinterest, I came across a band and a performance that I had been to myself. All right, I said to myself, I've got to have this. It was Sabat at the Marquee, right around the time they released Dreamweaver, which was the first time I had heard an album that drew my attention to terrible production choices. Andy Sneap has been making up for it ever since. But it has to be said, compared to the production values of the live bootleg, no apologies are needed. I think production is a generous term. Slipping a tape recorder into your battle jacket and pointing a condenser microphone the size of Lars Ulrich's drumming talent at the stage and hoping for something that captures the audiological experience of the evening was probably a hope too far. When I got home and put it in the deck, you could kind of make out what the songs were if you squinted. It sounded like a recording of the roadworks going on in full swing not 100 yards from the venue, or at least what I might have imagined the roadworks to have sounded like upon passing them after the concert. Stumble out of a metal gig and you can't hear a fucking thing if they've done it right. So yeah, I never bought another bootleg tape from the stall after that. I did pick up a misprinted picture disc of Candlemass's Epicus Doomicus Metallicus from there though. What an album. It has to be the most unfortunate thing to happen to a band. They start off by making the best album they are ever going to make, and they start that album with the best song they are ever going to write. Don't get me wrong, most of what they've done is good, but not as... Look, it's just my opinion. It's just my chinny reckons, innit? Not that Venom was the first heavy metal band. That's not my opinion. That's facts. But when it comes to... I haven't run out of steam, dear viewer. I could go on about this bullshit all day long. My problem with this one is that I need to stop writing at some point so I can get on with making it. I've got loads of metal things to talk about. I've got the Celtic Frost Cold Lake bit. Mainly that. I'm not going to do it now, as it couldn't possibly measure up to the hype I've accidentally, I say accidentally, built up around it. This paragraph is where I ease you into the idea that things are drawing to a close. This paragraph wasn't here before, but was brought into being by necessity, because if this wasn't here, then the actual ending would seem abrupt and quite blunt, which isn't the heavy metal way. That's all for this episode. I'm bored of saying the things, but thanks for watching. Good night.